If it's okay with Des and with Kevin and with Patrick, is if you're happy to open up your mics as we progress. We appreciate that Alan's here helping us with this test webinar. Our plan is to work through the materials, taking your advice and guidance, and if there's any particular areas that we need to focus and identify and maybe stress a little bit more as we do this. That's what we'd like to do with your help. Once we've got that feedback back from yourselves, we're going to then run a live webinar for other event members to get involved, and we'll record it. We're recording today's session just for a test to see how it goes. And from this, what we'd like to do, and again with your help, and we're grateful that you're supporting us today on this, is we'll create a training course. The training course will be made up in 3 parts. The first part is the webinar, which we're working through at this moment in time. The second part is some e-learning modules. And we propose 3 particular e-learning modules, and I'll tell you a bit more about them in a moment. And then the third part is the guidance document. Now, Kevin, we've sent across to you a draft version of the guidance document. It's just in a PDF format. We're busy working out the formatting of this at this moment in time, and there's a few extra tweaks we've got to go through, but we just wanted to get you out a version so we could see it today in advance of the webinar. And so there's a couple of things that we just need to tweak. Our plan is to publish a document either by the end of the week or the beginning of next week. And as I say, to get the e-learning modules available by the end of next week. So your staff at Allen's and other people will be able to utilize them. The idea of the e-learning modules really is just to sort of bring forward what's really in the guidance and make people aware of some of the particular areas. In your business, you follow probably the majority of all the things that we're going to talk about. But I guess from your perspective, it's just reinforcing what you do with the team and also making sure that your clients and customers understand the steps that you take to protect them and everybody else when you're hiring out your equipment and providing things for events. Just in terms of, as I say, the 3 modules, I'll just briefly go through what we're looking to put into them, if that's okay. And then I'd like to open up the mics if you're happy. We can turn the cameras on as well if you're happy to turn the cameras on. If not, you'll just have the pictures of Carl and myself, or Graham if Graham wants his to be opened up. To make sure that the modules really hit home, what we also do is we create some questions at the end. Get nothing in life for nothing, and you do need to pass a test. It's not meant to be challenging, but it's meant to make sure that people have actually read the material and worked through the slides. There are 3 types of questions that we ask: a true or false question, a select an answer from a series of 4 answers, a select all answers that apply. But it's really just to get people thinking. And of course, the guidance is the thing that sits under everything that we do. Kevin, we're aware that you've been working on some support and guidance for the team as well, and hopefully everything we're doing will complement the work that you're doing. Just in terms of the 3 modules, as I say, the first module is looking at the practical guidance for the event side of things, a review aspect, thinking about your risk assessments, thinking about traveling to work and how people are going to get there, a daily checklist to make sure that you're implementing things and you have a process and you understand the changes we've got as a result of COVID-19. And then finally, for this first module, guidance for offices and reception areas. I don't know if you have people coming into your particular premises, Allen's, to drop off things, to make payments, to collect things, to agree orders. Some businesses do. That's sort of the first module that we're looking at. As we progress through the discussions, Carl will highlight some of these things. And again, we'd like to open up the mics so you can feed back to us as we go. The second module really focuses on the customers and really understanding about their collections and any returns. How are you going to manage that? What are the arrangements in place? How do you show what you're doing and build on the systems that you have in place to deal with what we're dealing with around COVID? The preparation of equipment is essential, and the activities that you do, you'll no doubt have a wide range of operations that you have in place for dealing with this, but just making sure that this is stressed in that way, and also the delivery and importantly the collection of equipment as well, and making sure you're keeping things apart in terms of how you're dropping things off. You're not collecting in the same barns and those sorts of things. So that's the second module. And finally, the third module really focuses on the types of things that you have within your fleet that you'll be hiring out to people. Kevin, in terms of the business, just doing a little bit of research, china, cutlery, glassware, furniture, linen, your kitchenware, your bar supplies, your lounges, that sort of thing. So we've got a whole appendices. It's based around the things that our event members would have in their fleet, from, as I say, catering, temporary structures, sanitation. Some business may get involved with that or hire a specialist in, order visual guys, the site services, the trackway, those sorts of things, heating, venting, of course, air conditioning, and various different references. At the end of the guide and in the presentation that hopefully you can see in front of you, we've got a range of different links to the various governments across the UK and, of course, in the Republic of Ireland as well. One of the things that Carl has been doing is reaching out to members across the UK and the Republic of Ireland to make sure that we're up to date with what's going on. And as I say, we do have the links there to make sure that people are checking the current guidance. And indeed, as we know, the guidance changes on a regular basis. We've had some changes on Friday and some changes this week as well. And I think more planned tomorrow after the Chancellor here gives us some ideas about where he sees things going. It's not a full budget, but it will be backed up by a statement, no doubt, from what either the Health Minister or the Prime Minister as to what we want to do. So I'm going to try and open up the mics now, if that's okay with you guys. What we also have on this tool, and I know, Kevin, you've used this before, and thank you for your support with the webinar that we ran a couple of weeks ago. In the bottom right-hand corner, hopefully on your screen, you should see a little hand that you can click on. But also you've got a capacity and a facility there to actually ask messages and do things. Sometimes the sound may go depending on the signals of people's broadbands and the broadband width and the signal coming from the locations where you may be. So it's useful to let us know if when we're progressing, if something hasn't if the sound's gone off, the slide hasn't moved, if the screen's frozen. So I'm going to try and open up the mics, if that's okay, for Des and for Kevin. So just let me do this. Let me see if we can get this done. So Des, I've just unlocked your mic. There should be something that pops up that allows you to do it. Just unlocking that other mic for Graham there, and I'm going to try for Kevin here as well. So Kevin, I've just unlocked your mic, and Patrick. I'm going to try and see if I can unlock Patrick's as well. Okay, I'll start with Des. Des, can you hear me? Do you want to say something?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Thank you, Des. Thank you. Graham, can you hear me? And do you want to say something?
I can hear you. Is that enough?
That's enough, sir. That's all we need. Nothing over brevity, sir. Kevin, good afternoon. Kevin, can you hear me? Can you say something?
Can you hear me?
We can, Kevin. Thank you.
There seems to be an echo, Kevin.
I've got Kevin on twice, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've got it on the big screen without a mic. But the boys are in here with their phones as well. So is that what's supposed to be there?
That's what will be causing the feedback.
Yeah, because we're all in the same room, so
yeah.
Maybe we'd better just work off Kevin's mic. You think?
Yeah, that would be great, Des, if you wouldn't mind.
So we just close down ours, and Pat and I, and we work off Kevin's mic with him. Okay.
Fantastic, Des. Thank you.
Paul, if you turn off Des and Patrick's mics, it might help then.
Okay. So I've got that locked. Okay, so we should just have Carl, myself, Graham, and Kevin's mic on. Kevin, do you want to turn the camera on, or are you happy not to turn the camera on? So it's entirely up to you, Kevin.
Well, I thought it was on.
Let me just check. See what we get. You may get a message to click on your camera, Kevin. Hello, there we are. How are we doing?
Yeah, you can hear me?
We can. Still got a little bit of an echo there.
Okay, I'll turn off the sound on the other one. Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's perfect, Kevin. That's perfect.
Okay. Well, that's fine. We can still hear you. Yeah, off a bit.
Yeah, I'll just turn it up a bit here. Okay.
Great. Well, as I say, we appreciate your help with this. Sorry, Graham, go ahead.
I was saying that's a great haircut, Kevin.
You're just jealous, Graham.
I saw you in the chair the other day with your black plastic bag on.
I have an easy haircut these days. It's just straight around with the clippers, but yeah. Brilliant.
Sorry, I apologise. It's more serious as this.
As I was just saying, Graham, we appreciate Kevin and the team's help in looking at this, being the sort of guinea pigs of what we're doing. There's a huge amount of work gone into this, an awful lot of information there, and running through this, we just want to get as much information out to support members in their businesses as possible. Some of the things that we go through maybe significantly relevant that you want us to focus on in terms of, for example, putting a question in that area, and it would be great if you had some areas that we could include for questions. You know, if Des, in particular, if there's something that you think is really relevant as we progress, you say, Paul, a question on that one would be pretty good actually, because I think that's pretty critical for some of our customers when we're hiring in, to make them aware of what we're doing.
Yeah.
So if we, if something, we'll pull some questions together. We'll run them by you in any event. We appreciate your support with this. But if you come across any areas in the guidance, or as Carl goes through, and I'm just really opening this up. Carl's doing the heavy lifting for this one, really, to be fair. And he's a lot more experienced in pulling some of this information together than I am. But we just want to get as much feedback to make sure that it's as relevant as possible. So brilliant. So if I was just running this as a webinar, I'd start off by saying, since the beginning of the year, the whole world has been dealing with this spectre of the COVID-19 pandemic. And as your trade association, we're here to assist you by offering objective advice, support, guidance, and we'll continue to do this throughout the pandemic, and we will continue to be there and here working on the case for you. The webinar is part of a series introduced for members, and we'll record it for those who can't join us. And as part of the training program, as we mentioned before, we're looking for members to participate and see this. If we've got any questions, as I say, just for us now on the call, please pipe up as we progress. But there is a facility for people to ask questions. And as Kevin knows, because he was working with us and supporting the association a couple of weeks ago on a live event that we did for over 50 people, we can actually have surveys. We can get feedback. When you ask a question, we can actually put the question up on the screen, not just the slides that we're going to look at as we progress through things. So hopefully you can see the value of what we're doing with this, and everyone that goes through the program will get a certificate of attendance to say they've been involved. And for the work and guidance and assistance that the three of you are giving us today, we propose we'll also get a certificate, and it'll be signed by Graham, delivered through the team.
Using my signature in vain there.
It's on a PDF, Graham, sorry. But it is important that people going through this, it is a program that talks everybody through what we're trying to do, and to make everybody safe, and to get businesses back out there opening, and show the customers the quality work that you do to get these events on, get that equipment out there, utilize your fleet to deliver things. So it is important that it is certified, and that's what what we're trying to do at the association on that. I've said quite a lot. I'm going to pass over to Carl now. As I say, Carl's going to do a lot of the heavy lifting. Hopefully, as I say, Kevin, you've got the sort of draft version we sent across. The typeface and the settings and the index and everything else will be tidied up. It's actually with the printers at the moment for our first draft, but we just wanted to get a copy across to you just so you could see it. And there was some additional information that was put through, in fact, on Friday that Carl has put in, and we were all talking about it earlier today as well as a team. So I'm gonna pass on to Carl, and Carl is going to take us through where we need to be. So, Carl, thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Hello, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Carl Bartlett, Director of Certification Services for HA. I've spent 30 years in the hire and rental industry, although not specifically in event hire, as most of my experience has been in the construction-related sector. Here in the Northeast, we have a phrase, I'm not here to teach my granny how to suck eggs, and I'm not here to tell you guys how to do your business or any shape or form. You undoubtedly are going to be more familiar with many aspects of the items covered in today's presentation, and I would welcome any contribution from you guys too. The basis for this webinar came from the development of the social distancing practical guidance for event hire. It was born out of the various items of advice given from stakeholders, government agencies, other groups, and it follows on from our previous guidance developed for tool, plant, and equipment operations. The idea was to bring together in one place to offer practical advice and areas for members to consider. The guidance document will become a live document subject to review and update. We will have links on our website for the document. The guidance is to be promoted via our regular COVID spotlight, which we send out to members. Hopefully you'll have seen or accessed the COVID-19 daily advice for members, which we provide regular updates on. You'll also be able to access this via our homepage, the homepage of our website. Specific event hire appendices have been included in this document. Okay, obviously with event hire member organisations looking towards reopening their business, implementing appropriate measures to minimise the spread of infection, including social distancing and hygiene arrangements, is essential to protect us all. We all need to do what we can to reduce the spread of the coronavirus. Hence, the government has given clear rules for social distancing. This guidance is helping control the spread of the virus and reduce the mounting pressure on our National Health Service, allowing those most acutely affected with COVID-19 to access the care that they need. The creation of this guidance follows on from the COVID-19 practical guidance for hire centres by EHA to support members. The advice on social distancing measures applies to everyone. Minimise the opportunities for the virus to spread by maintaining a social distance of 2 meters wherever possible. This applies to your business, including the external public areas where customers may need to queue. The government introduced relaxed social distancing measures on the 24th of June as a measure where the 2 meter rule could not be achieved in the workplace, advising 1 meter plus distancing scenario, which can only be facilitated by mitigating the associated risk by introducing additional appropriate control measures. Hands must be washed in keeping with government health authority advice with soap and warm water for a minimum of 20 seconds. Hands should be washed more frequently than normal. Hand sanitizer should be provided and used regularly. Avoid touching face, including when gloves are being worn. The additional guidance within this document has been prepared for the consideration of the event hire and rental operations to minimize the potential for the virus to spread. Moving on to slide 6. It is critical that we check the guidance wherever we are located in the UK or overseas, for example, in the Republic of Ireland. Our guidance document has links to relevant government websites for this. It's a good starting point, I feel, to see that the advice on social distancing applies to everyone, and we must do what we can, encouraging our staff to cooperate with us. We have to share information with them, which brings me on to providing clear guidance. We should provide clear guidance on social distancing and hygiene to employees, customers, and visitors on arrival. For example, by signage and visual aids. Consider the number of employees and customers that can reasonably follow the 2 meter social distancing on the premises, and take into account the total floor space as well as likely pinch points in busy areas. The best way of communicating our results of our risk assessments and the measures we're putting in place to mitigate the risks is by holding staff briefings and toolbox talks. Remind staff to do the simple things such as maintaining social distancing and washing their hands, reminding them not to touch their face when they've washed their hands, if they haven't washed their hands, even if they're wearing gloves, and remind them to use hand sanitizer on a regular basis. The assessment has to be published if you have more than 50 employees. As part of your risk assessment, you should ensure that you have an up-to-date plan in case there's a COVID-19 outbreak. The plan should nominate a single point of contact, where possible, who should lead on contacting public health teams. I'm sure you guys have already seen the guidance, so I'm not sure how much of this I need to reiterate to you guys, but with regards to travelling to work for employees and the workforce arriving at your location, anyone who is symptomatic of COVID-19 must follow the specific advice published by Public Health England, which can be found at www.gov.uk/coronavirus. Encourage staff who are unwell to contact their manager before attending work. If they are symptomatic, encourage them to stay at home and contact their GP or the NHS website or dialing 111. The latest advice is encouraging people to go to a testing station, arrange through the web, and have a coronavirus test. And then they will be contacted with regards to track and trace and given details of self-isolation, which means they'll have to stay at home for 7 days to self-isolate. Anyone who is symptomatic of COVID-19 must follow the specific advice published by Public Health England. Those who live alone and have symptoms or are mild must stay at home for 7 days when symptoms have started. Those living with others who are in the household to have symptoms must stay at home for 7 days, but all of the household members who remain well must stay at home and not leave the house for 14 days. The 14-day period starts from the day when the first person in the house became ill. With regards to travelling to work, wherever possible, workers should travel alone using their own transport. Where it is not possible for workers to use their own transport, they should share transport only with the same individuals and a minimum of people at any one time. Keeping the windows open for ventilation, facing away from each other, using the external source air conditioning rather than circulating the air within the vehicle. Cleaning the vehicle is required with regular standard cleaning products whilst wearing gloves with particular attention to surfaces, handles, etc., which passengers may touch.
Can I just ask a question there? When we say
Sure.
standard cleaning goods, should that not be with a COVID sanitized, approved sanitizer?
The government advice is standard cleaning products are fine for cleaning touch surfaces. Yeah.
Because certainly we have changed our product from a non-COVID approved sanitizer to a COVID approved sanitizer.
That's good practice.
On the advice of Diversity. So we had a different sanitizer, but it wasn't COVID approved. Now I don't know technically what the difference is, but if we're just saying to clean the vehicle with standard cleaning, is that sufficient? I suppose would be my question.
Yeah, I mean, this is the advice that's been communicated from government, using standard cleaning products that you would normally clean surfaces with, which will, Dettol, things like that will kill germs and bacteria. So they're considered standard cleaning products. Yeah, antibacterial cleaning products.
Yeah, I'm just saying that Diversity would disagree with that, because Diversity Chemicals have told us that we need to use a COVID approved sanitizer, and my question is that correct or not correct? I mean,
Kevin, can I ask who Diversey Chemicals are?
They're one of the biggest chemical manufacturers well, certainly in the UK, possibly in Europe or the world.
So is it in their commercial interest to say that?
It may well be, yeah. Certainly,
Yeah.
we've had to change to it because that's the advice we got from them. So they would supply most of the hotels and an awful lot of the hospitality.
I think in respect of hand sanitizing and things of that nature, COVID-approved sanitizers is realistic. In terms of wiping down surfaces, from my knowledge, the instructions or guidance from government throughout has been effectively soap and water.
Right. I mean,
Yeah, the wording in the
That's what
standard
we-
cleaning product.
at the moment, we would be using two different COVID-approved ones. One is for surfaces and general wiping, and the other is for for spraying and misting. But they're both classified as COVID-approved sanitizers.
Yeah.
A different length of time before it kills the germs. But just in that this is catering and it's food-related products, so we are now sanitizing all our ovens and stainless steel equipment with that on the outside, and then effectively wrapping and bagging them to go out that way.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that.
I would agree.
Sorry, Carl.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that for your higher products. But as far as cleaning people's vehicles, I think the standard cleaning products would be sufficient.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point.
But it is probably worth clarifying, because I know there's certainly spraying park equipment in the parks with a sanitizer of some sort, because I saw them doing it in the village on Sunday. So, and that was a misting sanitizer of some description, which definitely wasn't just a standard cleaning product.
Kevin, we'll look into that. Thank you for bringing that one up. I made a note on the.
All we can go on is the guidance that the government have published. And
thanks, Carl. So we're at the bottom of travelling to work, and you were talking about the guidance there, the bottom points.
Okay. Depending where you are in the UK, the requirements to wear face coverings while travelling on public transport currently differs. The following requirements for wearing face coverings while transport were current at the time of writing, which was the 3rd of July. In England, it's mandatory. In Scotland, it is mandatory. In Northern Ireland, it was advisory, but you must check with the rules of private travel companies before you travel, as they might have their own specific requirements. Wales, it's recommended whilst using public transport when it's difficult to maintain 2-meter physical distancing. Again, you must check the rules of the private travel companies before you travel. And in the Republic of Ireland, it's advisory at the moment, but it was expected to be made mandatory within the next few days. It's important to review government publications for the latest guidance by visiting www.gov.uk. Okay.
We just lost Carl a moment there. Oh, don't know what happened there.
We lost Carl.
So, yeah, I've switched them back on. You should be. Hi, Carl. Can you hear us? Can you type me a message? Carl is still in the room with us. He's typing me a message right now, guys. Could be his broadband signal that's dropped him out. He said, I can hear you, but you clearly can't hear me. Very good. Let's just see if we can play around with these settings here.
We need Michael McIntyre.
We're not as good as that, Kev. We can try, but we'll need to play with it for a bit longer than that. Carl, do you want to drop out and come back in? Let's put the slide pack back up.
Just on the government website on cleaning vehicles, it says cleaning an area with normal household disinfectant after someone with suspected coronavirus has left will reduce the risk. And then it also says using a disposable cloth, first clean hard surfaces with warm soapy water, then disinfect these surfaces with the cleaning products you normally use.
But this is for normal, for passenger vehicles in terms of people traveling to work and so on, really, isn't it?
This is COVID-19 cleaning in non-healthcare settings.
Right. So that would be what, any vehicles outside of that then?
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
Yeah. So we're a bit over the top, maybe.
Maybe.
Possibly, but it's probably worthwhile being over the top at the moment.
Yeah. Well, I suppose our take on it is that, you know, we're dealing with equipment which is being used for food production. So we have to be that bit stricter about it all.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, as a business, you're going that extra mile, Des, to make sure that you know, your clients understand what you're doing to make sure this is safe and sanitized.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right, Carl's just come back in the room. Let's just see if we can get him back in again. Apologies, gentlemen. So Carl's sent me a message now. I can see he's in the room, but for some reason, it's funny. We had 16 on this a little bit earlier on, Graham. Didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
We ran a whole session for the team for over an hour. We took loads of questions. We put questions up on the screen. We went through the slides, and no issues, no problems. But we have had an occasion where sometimes people drop out. So as I say, we often say, if you drop out, please just send us a message, and we can get you back in. Right, let's just see if that gets Carl back in. The problem we have is we all have different views of what's going on. So the screen that I've got is split into about 5 different sections. So I don't know what you're looking at. So it's sometimes when they think, oh, that's a bit strange. Oh, what are you writing that for? But I can't actually see what you can see on your screen.
I poke Graham in the eye.
Oh, Graham. How would you?
So it looks like we've lost Carl.
It's back in.
He's not showing anywhere, is he?
No, he's logged out to have another go.
All right.
It's funny. Just before we started, I was locked out. I'd been in the system since because Kevin, I noticed you were in the lobby waiting from 2:30.
Well, yeah. Well, I put it on and I thought, well, I'm in now. I'm not going to go and mess it up and come out again. Just left
So
it on and went off.
I could see you there, and then it kicked me out about 2:45.
And then you couldn't hear me. So
Yeah, and Anne and I were on the phone just at 3:00 there because Anne's hosting it for us, although she's not on the call, and it wouldn't let me back in. So I'm thinking, oh, I'm driving the bus. How do we do that? Let's just see. Cool.
just to give you some visual, that's Des.
Hi, Des.
Hello.
And then over there, being very quiet at the moment, is Patrick.
Patrick, how
Have
are
you
you
got any jokes to entertain us with, Patrick?
Have you got one?
Has he got any jokes to entertain us with?
Don't get them started, please.
Right, I put Carl back into the presenter mode, so hopefully as soon as he puts all things being equal, he should have an option to click himself back in. He's busy furiously typing there, I can see.
Is it raining in Yorkshire yet, Graham?
It has been, but it isn't at the moment. It's dry. But it looks cool out there today.
Okay, so Carl has rejoined, but it won't allow him to tweak his
You just
set.
take over, Paul, run through it.
Yeah, I don't mind doing that, actually. I won't do as good a job as Carl, but I'm quite happy to go through the slides if everybody's happy with that.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, I'll try that. So we get the presentation back up. Okay, as Carl had mentioned before, and I'm sure you have this already within the way that you have your operation set up, it's essential to make sure people are aware of the things that you're doing to make sure that COVID is considered in everything that you do. It sounds obvious, but it's critical that people understand we do have a new norm here. It's essential that you undertake a staff briefing, a toolbox talk, to make sure everybody is on board with what you're trying to do. I guess the biggest thing that we've got to consider is in terms of, we lost the screen again. I don't know what's happened there. Let's try it again. I think we've got some gremlins here, guys. Can you see the slides again?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's essential to make sure that the staff understand why you've taken these particular steps, what you're trying to protect, how you're making sure that they understand what's being done. Obviously, if you issue the staff with relevant personal protective equipment, it's important that they use it wisely and is taken off correctly and is disposed of correctly. As Carl mentioned before, the various different government agencies across the UK and the Republic of Ireland have put together their own specific guidance. It's updated on a regular basis, and we ask people to make sure that they're following that as they go. But the best way to do it is to get people involved, to consult, to have a toolbox talk. It's also thinking about how is people's attendance to work going to be put in place? How are they going to arrive at work? Which way are you? Do you have staggered times? Do you have two people working on a shift basis? Particular things that you take out to hire if you're just dropping stuff off for clients to utilize. Is it a two-person lift activity? We've already talked a little bit about sort of general cleaning practices around vehicles, and obviously you guys deal with catering. So as was just mentioned before, you've got a high level of cleaning that goes on, and that's good because you're making sure everybody's aware of their responsibilities. Everybody has a role. It's about making sure that the particular routines that you have in place are followed up. Simple things, just thinking about, around the office, around the location where you are. Have you got the desks and seating in place to achieve social distancing? If you can't achieve social distancing, what have you done in terms of setting up things around, be a one-way system? maybe looking at how you operate your washrooms. Again, some businesses, they only maybe have you only have a short corridor to get to a toilet. Do you have a system for people knocking to make sure that people are coming? Right, I'm just getting a message here. I think Carl's back on.
Can you hear me?
Carl is back on. Carl,
Hi,
I'll hand over to you. I'll hand over to you. I was just filling, Carl. I was just filling. I just mentioned about making sure everybody is aware of their responsibilities and rules at the bottom of slide 8.
Okay. I'll move on to slide 9 then.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is guidance for office and reception areas. How you set up the premises. It's again very important to provide clear guidance on social distancing and hygiene to employees, customers, and visitors on arrival. This can be done by signage and visual aids. Organisations in certain sectors should collect details and maintain records of staff, customers, and visitors on their premises, and to support the NHS track and trace system. And there's details again on the government website to that effect. Consider the number of employees and visitors that can reasonably follow the social distancing requirement on the premises, and take into account floor space, likely pinch points, and busy areas. Flexible working and split shifts. Consider flexible working hours and split shifts where it's practicable to minimize the risk of people gathering and breaches of social distancing requirements. Consider staggered start times and finish times, as well as welfare breaks. Ensure that the same individuals continue to share shifts where possible. This would minimize the unnecessary contact with other individuals. The big question always seems to be surrounding PPE at the moment. We should continue to provide PPE that we normally have provided to our staff for the work that they're carrying out. For all other workers and sectors, based on current evidence, there's very little scientific evidence of widespread benefit from the wearing of PPE, aside what you would normally wear. Instead, practicing good hygiene and social distancing are key to minimizing the risk of infection. Details can be found at the newly created PPE Guidance Hub, which has been created on the government website as well. For all other workers and sectors, based on current evidence, there is very little scientific evidence of widespread benefit from PPE, so therefore we're not encouraging it. But at the same time, if we have people attending work who choose to wear face coverings, we will support them in the wearing of face coverings. One-way routing is when reviewing social distancing for the premises. We should continue to consider introducing one-way flows through the buildings, providing directional floor markings and signage, which remind the workforce and customers to follow social distancing requirements wherever possible. Regulating high traffic areas. The washroom facilities, ensure that the washroom and toilet facilities are cleaned and sanitized each day as a minimum, with particular attention to frequently touched areas, including toilet doors, locks, seats, flush handles, taps. Again, we should consider additional signage to remind staff with regards to the correct hand washing procedures. It's a good idea as well to have an end-of-day routine which is listed and communicated to the staff, so they're familiar with what's required of them, to wipe down and sanitize touch surfaces and touch points, and dispose of the waste cleaning materials in the appropriate manner into a bin lined with a bag, preferably lidded. And then at the end of the day, we should remove all the waste from site into external waste receptacles, the general waste receptacles, that is. Slide 10, Paul, customer collections and returns. I don't know if you've touched on this, Paul, but one of the highlighted issues that we've come across with our members and colleagues is equipment requiring a two-person close proximity lift, and the risks associated with hiring equipment which requires a lift by two persons. It must be suitably assessed. It may not be deemed permissible, depending on the products, the distancing arrangements. However, consideration should be given to loading and unloading vehicles safely, but also the movement of equipment by customers during use, and manual handling equipment should be considered to avoid close proximity lifts. Maybe decided that face coverings may be appropriate just for those short periods when this is required, and the necessary training with regards to staff should coincide with that to make sure that they're washing their hands before wearing face coverings, and again following the removal of them and disposal. If we're using manual handling aids, we must remember to sanitize the touch points of the handling trolleys and devices following use. Moving on to slide 11, Paul, please. Yeah, we'll consider regulating the entry to the premises. I don't suppose that this will affect the catering and the type of industry we're in as much. I don't suppose you get as many visitors as you do in the sort of higher centres for construction-related trades. But again, using signage to alert customers to your new practices on site and to avoid touching surfaces unnecessarily. Perhaps instructions on washing hands on arrival on site, and the use of the facilities on the premises. Again, we've touched on floor markings and directional signage. Slide 12, please, Paul. Many of the cleaning and preparation procedures for event equipment will remain unchanged. However, appropriate arrangements must be considered to manage the risk of any items becoming contaminated during the preparatory stages. In order to satisfy the client that suitable preparatory cleaning and disinfecting measures have been taken to ensure that the hire products reach them without further risk of contamination, it may be appropriate to provide them with documentary record of the cleaning and delivery process completed in support of this. And this could be a simple checklist to support the method that has been carried out in ensuring that the equipment reached them in the best possible uncontaminated state. You may consider employee pairing, particularly if we have a number of people going out on the deliveries. We'll have a constant pairing system to minimize the contact with other members of the workforce, because we have to consider the effects of where we would be and what would it mean to our business if we had to close the business as a result of one member of a team becoming infected. If we had a team situation or a pairing situation, that might negate the necessity to disrupt our continuance. Again, I'm not trying to teach my granny how to suck eggs here, but cleaning of hire equipment, again, the normal procedures for cleaning the equipment and disinfecting, as you touched on before, no doubt will be satisfactory. You mentioned that you'd been buying some new cleaning products, COVID-friendly or COVID-safe cleaning products, which would raise the need for a material safety data sheet for those products to be reviewed, so that you have a substance assessment review carried out for the risks associated with it coming into contact with the members of staff. That maybe additional PPE requirements for the use of the substances, how you dispose of them or deal with spillages, fire risks and storage hazards potentially, which would all be covered under your assessment of the substance. No doubt you'll have workshop equipment, including test equipment, test devices, which should be sanitized following use. If they're being used by the same person for shifts, then it may be only necessary to clean and sanitize the touch points at the end of each shift. All electrical devices must be isolated before cleaning. And do not use wet sanitizing products on electrical switches or any other equipment controls where there's a risk of ingress, which may present a risk of electric shock. We only should be using damp wipes and drying them off with blue roll, for example. And this should be done in accordance with the manufacturer's guidance, of course. Slide 13 deals with delivery and collection of equipment and the equipment handover process at the customer's premises. Prior to performing delivery tasks, it's important to ensure that all the relevant information, instruction and training has been suitably communicated to the drivers carrying out the handover of the equipment to the hirer or the operator in accordance with the advice of Public Health England to prevent the spread of infections. It may be advantageous, depending on the circumstances and wherever practicable and safe to do so, to carry out a trial handover exercise with delivery drivers in order to ensure that the process can be effectively completed whilst minimizing the risk of infection. This could be done on the premises before, sort of a mock, if you like, before we go out to site. It's probably good practice, and we recommend that we stock the vehicle with antibacterial wipes, hand sanitizer, disposable gloves, and a PVC bag for containment of used wipes, etc., so that the drivers can bring that back to the premises and dispose of it in accordance with our guidance. And prior to handover equipment, ensure that the equipment controls, switches, handles, steering devices have been sanitized to reduce the potential risk of spreading infections. Again, do not use wet products or products where there's a risk of moisture ingress into electrical controls. Communicate the on-site handover procedures.
Can I just add about 7.3?
Yeah.
So in 7.3, we wouldn't be planning on unpacking equipment that we deliver, because there could be 10 ovens which are now currently wrapped, and we would be delivering them wrapped, leaving them for the customer. But we would have sanitized them prior to wrapping.
Of course you would, yeah. This is sort of geared towards event hire companies who are possibly delivering road towable generators, for example, where they'd have to sanitize the starting procedures, the key ignition keys, engine stop controls, the covers for lifting up to gain access to them.
We don't install equipment; it's plug and play. And in most of our side of things, we could be delivering 10, 12 electrical items, whereas a generator company would be responsible for setting it up quite often or getting it going or whatever. But we wouldn't be, and that's quite a break between the two things.
Yeah, of course,
So I suppose I'm just thinking of it from when it goes out to a customer, how they might read that statement, assuming that we might unpack things, but when actually we've already prepared it packed, if you see what I mean.
Of course, yeah. If you've taken those measures to wrap and pack your equipment, then obviously that negates the need to do that. But obviously there's other hire companies whether it be an air conditioning unit where the controls have to be operated by the end user, then they would need to be sanitized at the point of handover, or following a demonstration or their desired handover process for the correct and safe operation of the equipment.
I suppose I'm more thinking about it from the smaller company who reads this, who thinks, actually, we should be wiping everything down before we leave.
Yeah.
That may be the case, but it would be different, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's a fair point, Kevin. And what we'll also do in the e-learning packages, we'll make clear about some of the different roles within the sector, different activities that people undertake. Not everybody will take the full breadth of things, as you rightly say. your particular offer, you do it in a particular way, you sanitize it back before it arrives on site as plug and play for the client, and you collect it and you sanitize it again, ready for reuse. So it's a good point. I made a note against that, so we can put some context and background in that.
Yeah,
Great, thank you.
because you've got to think, and from our point of view, we're following a lot of things, and I know something's not in here, but along the lines of what a restaurant is marketing itself as doing, because they're actually saying, we will sanitize your chair before you sit on it. So we're delivering chairs in stacks of 8 that have been sanitized, effectively speaking, so that at least we've gone to the trouble of doing that. And it's the same, I suppose, the same with other items. And the other bit that crept into mind was staff arriving at work. Well, in restaurant and hospitality, they are pushing for temperature controls to be taken in a lot of restaurants and things to give extra confidence. So we're going to have staff going onto site where potentially they are live hospitality areas. If we don't take their temperature when they start work with us, they could, in theory, turn up on site and not be able to get into the building. So one of the things we've put in place is that we are taking their temperature on arrival at work to check that they're not above 37.8.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what this highlights, Kevin, is the differences between the various product sectors within events and the difficulty of putting together a single e-learning package down that route. So whilst the guidance has been written in a generic fashion, there are a number of appendices that relate to the different product sectors. Yeah. And we probably, if we're going to do an e-learning package, need to bring those through separately and highlight it a little bit more, I think.
Yeah, because if they're going to be on site potentially with a customer base, which in a lot of cases you could be going into a hotel or going into a restaurant or going into a marquee that's got guests, in it or appearing in it at some point, or a busy area, then your requirement will be more in line with what's front of house in terms of a restaurant situation.
Yeah.
Whereas
it's an important point you're making, because the whole basis of the guidance and the e-learning and certification is to provide confidence to your client base that you're doing everything that is going to satisfy their requirements.
Yeah. It's a really good point. When Carl gets to the end of this section 7, that's kind of the first 2 modules, which, as Graham says, are generic in many respects to cover all the different sectors. Module 3 is really the specific aspect that we're dealing with, which covers the whole gambit, but it has a specific section. So section A is catering, furniture, and tableware.
Yeah. Okay.
Section B is temporary structures, tents, and marquees. So that's when we really pull through the specifics, Kevin, in terms of what you just mentioned there, especially the temperature checking. I've made a note of that. We need to make sure that the module for that area is very specific. And what we'll do is we'll get this set up in a way so they take that specific module. So they take the first 2 modules, but they absolutely get the specific module that relates to, as you call it, a live hospitality site.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good point. Sorry, Carl, I interrupted you.
No problem. One of the things about temperature testing, out of all the organizations I've spoken with who have introduced temperature testing, is the greatest benefit they've seen from it is the confidence that it gives their colleagues when attending work. Makes them feel more comfortable about attending work because the organization are taking it seriously and have introduced measures to deal with that, and that's great. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, I made a note of that to get that plugged in there.
So considering appropriate arrangements required to minimize the spread of infection where equipment is being delivered, which is carried on the same vehicle as equipment which is being collected for use. For example, encouraging regular hand washing and provision of hand sanitizer. These are just things to consider. Whether there's a procedural change required or training requirements. to prevent the spread of infection as a result of delivering collection operatives touching both equipment returned and equipment being delivered on the same vehicle run. Again, with that in mind, I know that within your type of industry, that equipment covers and protective sheeting is often used, and the need to sanitize or to launder, depending on the material which the covers are made of, is a consideration. Because certainly launderable covers should be cleaned after each use, or you may use disposable one. But I'm not sure, but it's a consideration for the nature of your industry. Again, managing incoming goods. Consider review of the process for receiving all incoming goods in order to minimize the risk of spread of infection. For example, establishing products that require quarantine and the designated areas for those products. Establishing products and packaging that require sanitizing before further processing. And establishing products and packaging that require isolating prior to third-party service provision, such as a laundry service. You may decide to quarantine your launderable products for 72 hours or 48 hours, whatever your risk assessment is arrived at. The government guidance for the retail industry was originally 72 hours for isolating or quarantining products that are returned. They reduced that to 48 hours because of the feedback from the industry and the practicabilities of it. So you may decide to do it for 72 hours, or you may decide to do it for 48 hours. But the minimum period is certainly suggested by government guidance as 48 hours. So the safe delivery of equipment is critical to build and maintain the trust of your workforce, your customers, and the people who are maybe impacted by your activity, because reputations are obviously hard to build and easy to lose. On slide 14, we have listed the areas where we've included appendices to this guidance document for specific areas within the event hire sector, such as catering, furniture, tableware, which is under Section A. Section B covers temporary structures, tents, marquees. C, portable sanitation provision and services. D, audiovisual. E, power generation. F, site services, trackways, barriers, perimeter fencing, hoardings, etc. And in Section G, we've also got some additional guidance specific to ventilation or air conditioning, specifically air conditioning units and evaporative coolers, which are often used within the event hire industry.
Kevin, just from yours and Des's and Patrick's perspective, would it be useful if we spent a bit of time on the Section A there, the catering, furniture and tableware, rather than going through the temporary structures, portable sanitation, audiovisual, power generation and the other things, just to get your feedback on those particular areas, if that's the key part of what you do and what you supply into your customers? Would that be okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
that'd be good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Do you guys do hand dishwashing or do you use machinery?
Well, I mean, it depends what you call by hand dishwashing. There's a combination of things happen. Most stuff goes through a dishwasher, but you have to clean ovens using, the correct cleaning material, but you have to physically clean them.
Yeah.
And you have to unpack crockery from boxes and put it into the dishwasher. So hand dishwashing almost is probably the wrong.
No, we don't do hand.
We don't do hand dishwashing. I can't imagine that there's many hire companies would be hand dishwashing.
They might hand wash. They might hand wash certain
yes,
items.
Something like a cake stand you might hand wash because it's too big to go through a dishwasher. But I'm not sure it's you won't have a load of hire companies stood there washing 100 plates by hand.
Yeah, it's fine. Okay.
But you'll have them hand washing rather than dishwashing. appliances and larger items of catering equipment, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And washing and cleaning larger appliances and items that don't go through the dishwasher, because I would say, I don't know of a hire company that wouldn't have a dishwasher. There'll be of varying degrees and levels, but that's.
I don't think they'll be in business very long.
No.
Yeah, it's mainly for the sort of larger items that would potentially wouldn't go into the dishwasher practically.
Yeah.
So obviously, where applicable, you would review the arrangements for cleaning and sanitizing.
Take the word dishwashing and call it hand washing arrangements.
Okay.
Because dishwashing almost assumes plates and cutlery, when actually I think you're more talking about. Although it does say tableware, cutlery, glasses. Does it?
Yeah, tableware as well. Yeah, so it could be a vase or yeah.
Yeah, well, maybe it's yeah.
So do you guys monitor water temperatures?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And what temperatures are you maintaining? Are you looking at 50 degrees plus, or?
The rinse temperature is at just on 80 degrees.
Okay.
That's the main rinse temperature, which is what finally kills everything, if you like.
Okay.
But the wash tanks are then down at, is it 60 days and 14? It's a cascading temperature, so there's 3 or 4 tanks that the stuff goes through.
Yeah, but the important thing is the 80 degrees at the end.
Yeah.
80 degrees at the end. Yeah, of course.
The other one is at 6. The main wash is at 65 degrees, I think, and before that, there's 2 other pre-washes on certain dishwashers. Some only have 1, and it passes through and filters down through a filtration system with the water being recycled and heat condensed. As it gets lower down, the heat is recycled through the water, which then reheats the pre-wash, if you like.
Okay, thanks for that. So are there any changes to the sanitizers, detergents, or cleaning solutions that you're currently using? And obviously, have you considered the arrangements for the COSH regulations as well? So obviously, you have to do assessments on any new substances that are brought into the process, and by the sound of it, I wouldn't imagine there would be.
Well, we have new cost sheets for the new sanitizer.
Right. Okay. The hand sanitizers. Yeah.
Well, they're also the new sanitizers that we're using for also the mist and for cleaning, finishing off ovens and things as well on the exterior of it. But so there are new cost sheets in place for those. But everything else is still the same, and yeah.
Okay. So with regards to dishwashing machines for cleaning tableware, etc., glasses, cutlery, I mean, this again, the process won't. I very much doubt would have changed, and the process probably continues to be suitable. I don't know whether you do any polishing afterwards or of certain items.
No, all stuff is washed through the dishwasher. It comes out at the end of it. Dry.
Is it handled or is it created automatically from the dishwasher?
Well, it is handled. The people at the other end of the dishwasher will be handling certain stuff. They wouldn't be handling crates, but they would be handling and wrapping china. But they'd also be sanitizing in the same way as a chef would.
Yeah.
They're and would treat themselves in the same way as you would in a kitchen, effectively speaking. Is
there anything you would leave out of there, or
when you say leave out
of Section 8.2?
No, I think it's all valid. It's the stuff we've done is look at it from a process point of view and said, that still works. And you know, if it needs to be wrapped, then it needs to be wrapped. But you still have to physically touch it to wrap it.
Yeah.
But in the same way as you have to cook, you have to touch food to prepare it. You just need to make sure you're clean.
You need to make sure you're sanitizing using the hygiene arrangements here. Definitely. Of course. Okay. Small cooking equipment A3.
Yeah.
Again, I'm sure that the processes that you have in place are satisfactory, and you would clean them as normal. Reviewing the drying and polishing, determine that it's satisfactory to minimize the risk of contamination, again with hygiene arrangements. And then carrying out combined inspection and testing as you would as normal, ensuring that touch points such as handle switches have been sanitized to reduce potential risk of spreading of infections. Do not use wet sanitizing products on electrical switches or any component controls where there's a risk of electric shock. Again, just as we were before, but again, you said that once you've done that, then you would be using a packaging or wrapping scenario to ensure that that equipment reaches the client in a completely sanitized manner.
Yeah.
So again, just consideration for the creating or packaging or wrapping procedure to minimize risk of contamination.
Yeah.
And then we move on to linens and drapes. Which is more relevant to you guys, I guess. Do you press at high temperature?
Well, it all goes through at high temperature, yeah, and it kills the coronavirus, so there isn't any risk after it comes off the laundry, other than, again, the handling issue, which exists across everything, really.
Yeah, okay. Is a suitable procedure established for washing, laundering of all linens and drapes returned from events? Consider the need for all linen returned from events to be washed, or if unused and still packaged or bagged, will it simply be stored, having cleaned and disinfected the packaging, or quarantined for a minimum of 48 hours in a dedicated quarantine area?
Yeah.
Okay. Consider appropriate arrangements for cleaning, disinfecting laundry baskets, laundry sacks, or other forms of containment used for the delivery and collection processes. Has a cleaning routine been implemented to sanitize all touch points on laundry machines and equipment following use? And another section I thought would be relevant to you guys would be the furniture and tables. As you said before, you're probably stacking chairs and having sleeves to cover them. So I'm guessing you've got appropriate arrangements already for the surfaces of the chairs and tables with proprietary disinfectant, and I no doubt you've considered the method of cleaning or quarantining for an appropriate period before handling, and depending on the environment or location in which the materials have been used, they may require more thorough cleaning or laundering. Again, covering with plastic covers, sleeves. I know you guys are doing that, so yeah, you already said that.
Yeah.
And do you feel that all of those items listed are relevant?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then, as you can see, we move on to section B, which is temporary structures and marquees.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if you guys get involved in that.
Not other than to go in them.
Yeah. And we also have portable sanitization covered in section C. We've got audio visual in section D, power generation in E, and track waste barriers and perimeter fences in F.
Yeah.
And G, we have the ventilation and air conditioning.
Yeah.
I'm conscious of the time, guys, and I really appreciate your involvement and your contribution. So we anticipated that this would last approximately an hour, and I think we've been on an hour and a quarter, which has possibly been attributed by my interruption, and I apologise for that.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's all right. Don't worry.
And I apologise if I've been speaking very quickly. It's something that we do in the North.
Fine, you know, been absolutely fine.
Carl, thanks very much. And Kevin, Des, and Patrick, we do really appreciate your support with this. As we say, what we'll specifically do is we're going to create these 3 modules. The first 2 modules, if you like, are sort of the generic things, and then the third module will be specific to a sector of events. And yeah, obviously, section A, catering, furniture, and tableware are the sort of big thing for you in your business. Other members of the association would focus on some of the other bits, some bits of other things, but you guys are absolute specialists in what you do for what we have in our section A. So we'll put together the module that's unique to whichever part of the event side that people are doing, in addition to the first 2 modules. Could I ask 2 favors, if I may? I appreciate we've gone over the time. Would you mind if I just go back to the slide? I don't know, Kevin, if you have the document open in front of you, but to help us really bring to life section A of this part of the guidance, we're really after some good quality images that we could use, if that's okay, within the e-learning package.
Yeah, okay.
We wanted to check. I wouldn't want to, use anything from your website. We just wanted to check if you would help us. Graham's laughing there. I was gonna say, look, it's on your website. But if we could speak to somebody who would help us with just some images, that would be great. Because, as I say, this particular module 3, we really want to bring to life the guidance in this particular module, so people can see the types of things that are in your fleet that you hire out. It's the special nature of what you do that people see, and but that's what it is. We really need those images there to bring this to life. And with the other parts of the event sector, we're getting their images too, so we can bring to life. All we've really got is a holding slide there, so you can see, and with a guidance draft version you've got in front of you, you can see that we've gone into those specific things. But this is a bit I need to flesh out next week.
You could send me that page that you want there. I'll have a chat him and get him to send you over some images tomorrow.
Fantastic, that's great. And in terms of coming up with some specific questions that we'd have in this module for this particular part, would one of the team be happy just to work with me, just to give me half an hour of the time, just to bat through a few potential questions that we could put together? If that'd be okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Well, do you want to do that now?
I'm happy to have a call after this, Des. If you're happy, I'd be delighted. If that'd be all right.
Well, we can do it. I'll do it. We can all do it now if you want.
Yeah. That'd be great. Yeah, if you don't mind.
We can do it.
We can do it now if you want it.
Yeah. Please. So, as I mentioned, what we tend to do is we tend to just ask the questions in sort of three different ways. So, a true or false question, straightforward answer, true or false. Do you have to use the machines? What's the temperature it needs to be? Is it 60? Is it 120? Something like true? Is it true or false? Do you have to have it this heat or this heat? Which is the best? The second one is select an answer from a couple. So select an answer from 4. Where 2 are probably really not the answer. One's kind of close, but one's definitely the answer, just to get people thinking a little bit. And then the third one is they have a list and they select all that apply to something. Again, it's just that one is really not to catch anybody out, but to actually see if they've really gone through and retained the knowledge, because probably 3 of those 4 things are pretty relevant, but what's the question actually asking them is what we're after. So would we suggest something would be a temperature one to start off, guys? Would that be a good one? In terms of cleaning, for example, so the washing arrangements for things, would that be a good starting question to sort of get them into that after we've identified it within the guide?
I think you've got to start with simpler things to start with, which are more around depends whether how often should I sanitize my hands?
Yep.
I mean, have you got questions?
Twice a day,
of a
4 times a day, or as often as needs be. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying that's.
No, that's a good one.
All of that.
have you got?
I'm going to have to leave you now because I've got another one coming up shortly. I've got a good question for you. The answer is yes, no, and never. Would you let your wife cut your hair?
Well, I did.
I could feel the love in that question, Graham. I could feel it.
I'll see you later, Kevin. Thanks very much.
Bye.
See you, Des. Bye, Patrick. Bye. See you, Cal. Paul.
Yeah.
So, how often should I sanitize my hands? Yep, it's a good one to lead them into, Kevin. Happy with that one.
Because if you start with something that's relatively obvious or should be obvious, you might get, because it is all about washing and sanitizing hands throughout the whole process, really, isn't it?
It is. That's the best way to minimize the transfer of anything.
The key areas are washing hands, sanitizing hands, and touch surfaces, where that is how the pandemic spread. So I think when is the key, isn't it? When should I wash my hands? On arrival at work, before I start a work process, when I finish a work process, before I complete a delivery task, after I complete a delivery task, before handling goods, after handling goods.
Yeah, it's all of those things.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll mold something together around that one. That's a good start for 10, guys. Thank you. So just going back to the guidance, Kevin, if you've got the document in front of you. As I said, maybe I was reaching to get the water temperature one in first. There we go.
The sanitizing bit, but first they've got to get to work. So are you looking to cover all of those sections, or just specifically the catering equipment? Because
just in this section, the catering bit, I'm really interested in this. These are specific questions around catering, furniture, and table where we can say that we've given them the general guidance in sections 1 to 7, depending on which part of the event sector they're in. And we will clarify, you may not do this in your operation kind of thing. But then we really focus on your speciality in this particular module. For the other modules, it'll be the other guys, the temporary structures and that. But we really want to get across. If you were doing some internal, Des, if you were doing some internal training and you wanted to ask a few questions around this, and obviously it's based around COVID, so we're making sure we're thinking about that. What would we include? What do we think? We need to make sure that they've retained this knowledge, because this is it's critical to make sure that we can affect the plans and the operations and the procedures that we live and breathe by. This is what we do.
Yeah, well, I suppose I would break it down into the different activities. So I would first of all be looking at sort of picking orders. And then I'd be looking at loading orders, loading. I'd be looking then at delivering collection. So I would break it down into those sections, and I would have specific questions which dealt with elements within that. So let's say with the picking, I would have a question around, roughly around what sort of PPE might be involved in the picking of equipment, of the preparing of orders.
Yeah.
Now, what we've said in our business is that the guys will not wear gloves, but they will wear masks when they're actually picking an order or preparing an order. Now, that's not necessarily something that you have in your section, so I don't know whether you want to put that sort of thing in.
Well, what we can do is we can. I'll work up a list and I'll send these back to you guys to have a look.
Yeah.
And obviously, we can get the most relevant things in. As I say, the key thing really is just to show that we can. We're asking them some specific questions around catering and table.
How many questions do you want really in the sort of to do with what we do?
It's in this for this particular module, it's a minimum 5. Ideally 10, but as long as there's a minimum 5, because there'll be 5 for the other 2 sections as well. At the end of the day, what we're trying to get them to do is trying to get them to learn something. We're not trying to get them to take an exam and put them back to school.
I do understand. So the questions that you've prepared, the general questions and so on, have you got copies of those already?
Yeah, absolutely. What I'll do after this call is I'll send you a copy of this slide, and I'll send you a copy of some of the questions we've used for some of the other things that we put together. I'd say 5 or 6 questions for each bit. That's what we've done. It's nothing more than that. The thing really is that they need to work through the stuff on the system to be able. Well, ideally they know the answers anyway, but they work through the slides to get to take the test at the end.
Yeah.
So we can see that they've retained some of the knowledge of what we've told them. I mean, you're absolutely right about picking orders, loading orders, delivering and collection. Yes, they are covered in the earlier 2 parts of the guides, but actually you're specifically targeting them in this area as to what we want to get out of it.
But if you can send me the stuff that you've got already, then I mean tomorrow morning, we can I can pretty quickly come up with half a dozen questions that are specific to our industry and what we do, and that aren't already covered in the questions you've asked already.
Fantastic. That'll be great. We really appreciate that. As I say, we just want to bring this to life a little bit, so we can show that we're we've got an agreed program that we're taking people through. Really, that's what we're after.
Yeah. Okay.
I will. When we finish this call, I'll send this slide. I noticed a typo on the previous slide as well, which I need to amend as well. And I'll send you the draft questions we've used for a couple of other things.
Yeah, and then we'll come up with specific ones for our.
Follow the level through from picking to delivery to return,
because those are the things we've got to specifically deal with, those different sections or different activities within what we do. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin, as you rightly said, you're taking things into a live venue. I mean, sometimes it's quite something to consider.
Well, what happened was when I read your stuff and then I read what our customers are saying, and our customers being hotels, restaurants, but also private people, and so they're reading what a restaurant is doing and saying, and actually we're turning up at their house for a party in their garden with equipment that they're hearing from the restaurant that their table's been sanitized, that they're, do you know what I mean? That stuff has been prepped, and that people have been tested for temperature when they arrive in the restaurant in the morning to work, and that they are wearing a face mask whilst on site or whilst serving you at the table, not necessarily in the rest of the building, but in reality, when our driver knocks at the door to some private person's house, he's kind of got to be behaving in the right way at that point. In the same way as you would expect the waiter who turns up at your table to behave, almost, which is a slight change and that's the same when you go into a venue. You're turning up at a museum or a gallery or whatever it is, which is a public place. It's not, and so you kind of have to be on a level with how they're behaving and what they're doing themselves within those venues. But different if we were turning up pre the start of a festival and we're on site with only, if you like, the contractors. But in our case and our type of industry's case, more often than not, we're on site right at the end of that process when all the hospitality staff are on site, the chefs are on site, and we're then delivering as well. So we're not. Whereas a marquee company is slightly different. They're there at the inception, more so.
Okay.
Word or concept.
Could I ask, is there anything in there anything that isn't in there that you'd like to have seen in there?
It's pretty much followed the same lines that the original one did, but with a bit of tweaking. And I think it's pretty much where it needs to be. I don't think there's, it's up to everybody then to take their own practices and apply it. And that's the difficult thing, is everybody needs to look at it from what's practical from their point of view. People might say they'll bag every box of glasses, but we're choosing not to bag every box of glasses because the glasses are, it's not practical to do that. And the volume that you'd be doing. But if we're sending a small job to somebody, we will bag those glasses. If it's 2 crates, then we will. But otherwise, we'll wrap a cage. So there are different operating procedures which will be applicable for different jobs in order to make sure that equipment is safe when it gets there. But I do also think it will evolve over the next, hopefully, month, 6 weeks to a lot lesser level. But we're better off going in there with a fairly decent level to start with, from a confidence point of view.
Yeah, set the bar high.
Yeah, absolutely. Ken, you're absolutely right. It's about considerations, isn't it? At the end of the day, you as a business, you will consider certain things, and you have a good set of procedures, and you'll follow certain things. You'll take the aspects of the guidance that really make a big difference for you and complement what you're doing. Others will take other aspects. The thing is, it's following the guidance that's out there and working to make sure the clients understand what you're doing on their behalf.
The key areas are designed to be thought-provoking, so that it provokes the people to react in the most appropriate manner to what is contained in the guide.
Yeah. No, I think so. We'll get some over to you and some images over to you tomorrow as well.
Kevin, I really appreciate you giving your time this afternoon. Also, Des and Patrick, I appreciate you guys helping us out. And Kevin, I've known you for a long time. You've done a huge amount for the association, and I appreciate that.
Thank you, guys.
It's all good fun.
Pleasure.
Anyway, thanks a lot.
Thanks, guys. We appreciate it. Right, take care.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.